Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the different types of muscle tissue. So muscle tissue is highly vascular as compared to, say, something like cartilage. But muscle tissue is its own separate type of tissue, and it's responsible for most types of movement because many muscle cells possess these things called myofilaments that are made up of something called actin and myosin. And these are essentially proteins that bring about muscle contraction, which is essentially tension. Now, there are three types of muscle tissues. We have skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. And the first type we'll talk about is skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is visually identifiable because you have long, slender, tube-shaped cells here that are very striated. You can see all those striations here in the tissue. Also, skeletal muscle cells are highly nucleated. So you see that there's multiple nuclei all along the length of each cell. Now, in terms of its location, it's found attached to bones, hence the name skeletal muscle, or sometimes even attached to skin or even other muscles. Now, the function of skeletal muscle is involved with voluntary movement. And what I mean by this is if you consciously produce a muscle movement, like if you say, I want to move my arm, the conscious act of moving that arm involved skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles are also involved with manipulating the internal body environment because these things can have rapid contraction for raising your body temperature. They're also involved with facial expression and just voluntary control of body movements. Now, this differs from cardiac muscle because, for one, cardiac muscle cells are highly branched, which is why this looks more disorganized. If you look here, this could be one cell, and you can see that it branched into two. And so it makes this tissue look a little bit less ordered than skeletal muscle tissue. Also, cardiac muscle cells are shorter, and they're interconnected by intercalated discs, which you can see here. And intercalated discs are just basically large collections of gap junctions and desmosomes that hold these cells together tightly and allow for the communication of electrical currents. Now, unlike skeletal muscle cells, cardiac muscle cells are typically uninucleated, so they typically only have one nucleus, although it can sometimes have two. And the only place you find cardiac muscle is in the walls of your heart, hence the name cardiac muscle. Now, unlike skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle is under involuntary control, which means it's not under your conscious control. You can't consciously stop your heart or consciously force your heart to beat more strongly. Functionally, it's just involved with helping to regulate blood pressure and circulate blood throughout the body. Smooth muscle tissue is not striated. You don't see the stripes or striations as you would see with cardiac or skeletal muscle. And also, smooth muscle cells are smaller and they're more spindle-shaped. They kind of taper off at their ends. They're uninucleated here, and their function is involved to propel substances or objects. So in that regard, we're going to find smooth muscle tissue within the walls of hollow organs. Think your digestive tract, think your respiratory tract, genitourinary tracts. These are going to have smooth muscle in their walls as well as blood vessels. And they're also under involuntary control. So you can't consciously control skeletal muscle. It's actually under the control of a different branch of your nervous system. And so that the contraction of your stomach or the dilation of your airways or the contraction of your urinary bladder is under automatic unconscious control, which, like cardiac muscle, smooth muscle is under involuntary control. Now, the key with smooth muscle, though, is that it's called smooth because there are no striations, and you typically find this within the walls of hollow organs.